To get you ready for the factoring quiz, we're going to go through all the different types of factoring and how we use factoring to help us solve. So the first type of factoring is GCF factoring, or taking out the common factor. So I put two up here that are actually harder than what you're going to see on Delta Math. I think the Delta Math ones are a little more simplistic as far as the amount of stuff you have to take out. So the first thing you want to do is look at numerically what the biggest factor is. So if you look at the first one, 12, 6, and 36, the greatest common factor between those is 6. And then you're going to look at your x's. You have x squared, and just an x. You can only take out just a single x because this last term only has one. And then you're going to do the same thing for your y's. So you have a y to the third, you have a y and a y squared. So they all have at least a single y. So that is your common factor that comes out front. And then you're going to go to each term and divide that out and see what's left. So if I divide 12 divided by 6, I get 2. I took out one x and one y, which means I'm left with 1x and y squared. Middle term is going to be a minus. You can put a 1 if you'd like. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Or you can just put your variables that are left. The only variable that is left is an x. So you can put x or you can put 1x. And then the last one, you have 36 divided by 6 is 6. The x came out and you have a y left over. So that is your first one. Your second one has one extra note to it. If their first term is negative, you do have to include the negative as part of your GCF. And then you're going to see what else you can take out. Let's see. Biggest number that can come out between 15, 25, and 30 is 5. They all have at least a single a. And they all have at least a single b. So negative 5ab is your GCF. So you're going to divide negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. And that's actually it in the first term because the a and the b came out. And then negative 25 divided by negative 5 is 5. And we have an a left. And then 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. And we have an a squared and a b squared left. So those are two examples of GCF, and probably like the toughest examples you see. You will see easier ones where you're just taking out a single number or a single variable. Looking at some, these are factoring and solve, so this is going to allow me to review the factoring techniques and also review the solving. So when you're doing factoring and solving, the biggest thing to start is that always make sure you get everything on one side equal to 0. So that's called standard form. So we're going to subtract 27 for this first one. The second one's already in standard form. The bottom one, we need to subtract 20 to get it in standard form. So that's how you want to start, is make sure that they are in standard form. Next thing you want to do is see if there's anything that you can take out, if any of them have a GCF. The top two do not. There's nothing I can take out. The bottom one, we can actually take out a 4. So I'm going to do that now while I'm thinking of it. And then finally, you want to look and figure out what factoring technique is left. So if you have 3 terms left, which all of these you do have 3 terms that have to be factored, you are going to look and see if you have to do regular FOIL factor or the AC one. All of these end up being the regular one, so these 3 will be very quick. And the reason is because your first term is just an x squared. So you're looking for numbers that multiply to get negative 27 and add to get negative 6. So that's going to be a minus 9 and a plus 3. And then with the solve, make sure when you're done, you actually write the solution. So that will be what makes each factor equal to 0. So the first one, 9, will make it equal to 0. And the second factor, negative 3, will make it equal to 0. So those are your solutions. Next one, we need 2 numbers that multiply to get 20 and add to get 9. That's going to be a 5 and a 4. And you can write them in any order. Solve each one, set each one equal to 0. So the first factor will be 0 when x is negative 5, and the second one is negative 4. The bottom one, I need numbers that multiply to get negative 5 and add to get 4. So that's going to be a positive 5 and a negative 1. So x plus 5, x minus 1. So my 2 solutions are negative 5 from the first factor of x and positive 1 from the second. So these are all basic FOIL factor with just a little extra work in the beginning. These 3 are all in standard form already. The only one that has a GCF, if you look at the 3, the first one's good, the top right is good. The bottom one, though, I can take out a 5x. That's my GCF, so I'm left with x minus 5. I'm actually going to finish this bottom one because once you take out the GCF, it's almost done anyway. This is fully factored. Once I take the 5x out, my 2 solutions, what makes 5x equal to 0 is just 0. And then what makes x minus 5 equal to 0 is 5. So those are my 2 solutions. The top 2 are different. The top 2 are already in standard form, no GCF. These are difference of perfect squares because we have 2 perfect squares that are separated with a minus sign. So these are going to factor x plus 6, x minus 6. And then this one's going to be 3x plus 10. And I'm getting these numbers from taking the square roots of the values. 3x minus 10. Now, when you solve with a difference of squares, your solutions will be opposites, meaning there'll be one positive, one negative, but other than that, the exact same value. So the first one, the solutions are plus or minus 6. Now, on Delta Math, you may have to enter them separately. I think you have to put a 6, and then you hit the little plus sign, and then put a negative 6. And then for this one, so it's going to be the opposite of 10 over 3 and the opposite of negative 10 over 3. So you're going to get plus or minus 10 over 3. So there's two perfect square ones and a GCF one. With our AC ones, and I mentioned there are so many ways to solve these, and I do not care which way you go. Use something that you've done in the past that you really liked, or use the method that I showed you the other day. I am going to get that first one in standard form. So no matter your method, your first step is usually, once it's in standard form, figure out what your AC is. So A times C is negative 12. So now I need two numbers that multiply to get negative 12 and add to get 1. So that's going to be 4 and negative 3. So I'm going to take you through the way that I did in class. You were welcome to use the big X or the box method, whatever works for you. So in class, we said we're going to take a 6x plus 4 and a 6x minus 3. And this is coming because my first term has a 6. That's why this 6x is there. And then you're going to see if I can divide anything out of each factor. So the first set of parentheses, I can divide a 2 out of everything. And the second one, I can divide a 3 out of everything. So that means my final answer for my factors is 3x plus 2 and then 2x minus 1. Finally, it does want the solutions. So my solutions are going to be what makes each of them 0. I can do the shortcut, which is the opposite of this number divided by this number. So negative 2 over 3, and the opposite would be 1 over 2. So those are my solutions. The next one, there is no GCF, so I'm going to go right to AC. AC 4 times 15 is 60. So two numbers that multiply to get 60 and add to get negative 16 would be negative 10 and negative 6. So I've got 4x minus 10 and 4x minus 6. Everything can be divided by 2 to get my final factors. So 2x minus 5 is one factor. 2x minus 3 is the other factor. And then finally, my solutions are going to be 5 over 2 and 3 over 2. Those are my two solutions. And you can write them as fractions in Delta Math. You don't have to do decimals. And then finally, the last piece is, can you take the solutions and work backwards and write the standard form equation? Make sure with your standard form equation that you do FOIL before you type it in. If you don't type it in standard form, it will tell you you're wrong. So you're going to write a factor from each one. So negative 5, the factor would be x plus 5. And then 3 is a solution. Your factor would be x minus 3. Here's what I mean by don't walk away or type it in now. You do have to FOIL it to get it in standard form. So I'm going to do my first, my outer, my inner, and my last. And then I'm going to combine like terms. So my middle terms, my outer and my inner, will combine to 2x and then the minus 15. And it will tell you on Delta Math and remind you what form to put it in, but I just want to remind you again here. For this one, so if 2/3 is a solution, so this becomes the coefficient of x, so 3x, and then it's going to be a minus 2. This one is also going to be 3x, but it's going to be a plus 1. The reason it's plus is you use the opposite sign. So I'm going to FOIL. So 3x times 3x is 9x squared. 3x times 1 is 3x. Negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. Negative 2. Combine like terms. So your middle terms, 3x minus 6x is negative 3x. And that is the standard form equation. So that takes you through all of the factoring and all of the rewriting that is covered on this quiz.